All right, intro coming in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Can't Clip It. We're gonna leave it in. Our guest this week has worked with Kenny vs. Spenny, Joe Rogan, among many others, and has probably the greatest credit a white Canadian comedian can have. Has worked the Nubian Show. Welcome, Paul Thompson.
Thank you.
I should have said I'm Jesse Ralph. He is
Evan. No last name.
No last name?
Yeah.
You're already on your print shit.
Yeah.
I like that.
No, it's good.
Dear Evan Hansen.
Nah, just
No.
Evan.
Okay.
But you do have your diary. Right? If you want to do a little Dear Evan Dubois.
Yeah, no, I got some poems in here. We can. No,
Nice. Do you write poems?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, not in a long time. But I went off on poems for a little bit. But I probably haven't written a poem in like years.
Want to hear a poem?
But I had so many. Man, so I released a website like when I was like in 2012, and I was just like, it's gonna have sketches, it's gonna have music, it's gonna have this. And then I made a point to write a poem every day.
Yeah.
And I wrote like 80 poems, but like not funny poems.
Okay,
deep,
like real poems.
Real poems.
Like artist poems.
Yeah, like artist poems.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I was thinking like, man, artists do this. I'm an artist. And then I made a separate page that was like a blog spot. So my website was called I Am Paul Thompson. And then I also had iampaulthompson.blogspot. Right? And that's where all my poems were. So then if you went to my website, there was like, you could click on poems, but not a lot of people were doing that. Right? Mm-hmm. So then when I was promoting my website, this happened like 3 or 4 times that people were like, hey man, like I went to go to your website and I Googled it and it just showed up some guy who has the same name as you and it's just some really depressing poems. And
that's
it was
hilarious.
like, oh, that's crazy. And they'd like send me the link, like read some of these too. It's sad. And I was like, I'm like, that's me. I think that's still up there too. iampaulthompson.blogspot.com. I don't think that got like taken down, but it was like so many people were like, dude, like, and they would send me the website, like, read some of these poems. Like, this guy is going to kill himself. Anyways, how do I find the sketches? And you're like, oh, they're at this website, but like the poems are also me, dude.
Were you actually admitting it was you when people were shitting on you?
It depended how hard they did. Like sometimes people are like, I went to this website and then there were just some like really deep poems. Yeah. And I'd be like, those are me. And they'd be like, oh, cool, man. But then sometimes when they would send it to me and like pick out 1 or 2 and they'd like literally read this one, like, who shares this shit? And I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, man. Some people, eh?
Do you remember any of the poems?
Of course. Yeah,
okay,
man.
give us one.
Well, like not off the top of my head. I remember like there was like being like so broke. I have like a poem that was like the last day of the month and like being like so panicked on like how to pay rent and it was like so depressing. And then I wrote another poem, it was like the first day of the month I figured out how to pay rent, and then I had a ton of poems about like girls with brown eyes. That's where it's like really, because like I love girls with brown eyes, but like they're like really specific. Like, man, honestly, there's some that I bet you if I look at it that I'd forget, that like I would remember like being early in stand-up and like bombing shows. And like, I think there's like a poem like this, and then like people being like, yeah, like, do you want to drive home? And I'd be like, don't deserve it. And it would be like pouring, and it would be like pouring rain, and they'd be like, it's pouring rain. I'd be like, I know. And I remember like walking home like an hour in the rain and being like, I deserve this. And then being soaking and coming straight to the computer and being like, when you open up your soul and people don't understand, like if you went there, like there's definitely poems that are like, what the fuck, man? Like, you know what I mean? And I remember too, every time I wrote those poems, not only thinking like people are going to like these poems, my plan, so I was probably like 21. And I remember thinking like, people are going to love the poems and I'm going to keep writing the poems. And then at the end of the year, because I probably had like 70 poems, I was like, when I get to 100 poems, I'm going to publish them into a book. And then like the book's going to sell. Do you know what I mean? You ever have those ideas that you look back on that you're like, keep that inside? You know what I mean? And like looking at like, or like seeing in a note, like your goals. I mean, like that was one of your goals. You thought you were going to have a coffee table poetry book. Yeah. It's like, well, Tupac did it. It's like, yeah, dude, you're not Tupac. You're just like a 21-year-old skinny white guy. What are you doing, man?
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny.
That must feel worse than like any bomb, putting yourself out there and then people close to you being like...
I mean, like, Yeah, like kind of yes and no. Like, you know what though? Like, I still took it as like the artist in me was just like, yeah, like I got layers. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like, it didn't really. It's like when people are like, these are really depressing. It was like kind of like cool to show like, you know, like different. What's the word I'm looking for? Why am I blanking on that word?
Like, I'm not a regular guy.
You know when like an actor can do different parts? What is that?
Oh,
like,
versatile?
Like versatility or something? Like, yeah, that I was like, you know, like a range. That's what I'm looking for. So I'd just be like, when people are like, this is really depressing. You know what I mean? But I just saw your sketches and they're funny. I'd be like, range. Range. You know what I mean? That's all it, like, so I never took it back because I would just think like, I'm like Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can be funny, but I can also be like, you know, some Robin Williams, Good Will Hunting shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Childish Gambino.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, I do have a link for this. So you said people would send it to you thinking it was another Paul Thompson?
Yeah.
When we were doing research for this episode, I found out there's another comedian named Paul Thompson.
There is.
Who works for the Second City.
In Toronto.
I don't know if it's in Toronto.
I hate this.
I know. I wanted to bring this to you as clearly the better Paul Thompson. What are your thoughts? And what do you want to say to this guy directly?
So here's the thing. It's like always when you're doing stuff, it's like I do have like such a common name. So like always like it's just kind of like the benchmark. Like it's just something for me to chase. Because like there's been times where like I would like type in Paul Thompson, and even now, so I think there's a band called like Roxy. Do you know Roxy?
No,
I know the song.
Yeah, like Roxy, like I think that's the band's name. I think their drummer's name was Paul Thompson. Okay. So if I type in just Paul Thompson, for the most part, like a lot of that drummer pops up or different things, and people have real estate, and it's such a common name. Okay. But like I remember like, so like that's my goal that I'm chasing. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, I'm working hard. So like I'm not worried about that stuff where I'm like, I'm sure a year from now if I type in Paul Thompson, it's just me. Yeah. I'm like, cool. Like it's a common name, but it's like I'll own that name, right?
Yeah.
But like I remember like 2 years ago or like I remember like 5 years ago typing Paul Thompson comedian in.
Yeah.
And then like it would just be like other things, but it wouldn't. But like now if I type in Paul Thompson comedian, it's just me.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, okay, we're making progress.
Yeah.
However, if you type in Paul Thompson comedian, there's videos that, and I don't know what to do about this. Maybe like you're pretty like internet savvy.
You could flag them.
Like
if it's actually you, like you could report it to YouTube.
There's videos that are actually me that like someone was just recording like 8 years ago. And it's like material that I'm like, there's 8 people there.
Yeah.
Like there's material, like there's literally a video, like I don't want to promote it, but if you type it in, you're going to see it.
Yeah. All right, everybody, remember this URL, check it out. And I'll link it in the description.
I'm like saying just shit that I'm like, I don't want that to be like a clip. And like every time I check that clip, it has like 100 more views. And you're like, there's people like that are searching. And I'm like, and all I do is like, I just report it. But like, what do I report it for? I'm like, inappropriate, this, that. Like, I don't know how to flag and be like, this is me. I don't want this on there.
Is there like a comment box when you flag it?
No.
There isn't?
No. Because if there was, I would be like, this is me. I don't want this here. I didn't give permission. I'd get super Karen about it, you know?
Maybe try commenting on the post. Maybe the person who put the post up will see the comment and just take it down.
I think I saw that person like years ago and mentioned that. And they were like, well, too bad.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like...
All right. I'm going to link it in the description. You guys bomb this guy.
Yeah.
Kill him.
It's like, yeah. So, but whatever. It'll all get buried and stuff like that. But yeah, I didn't know that there was another comedian, but.
Man, I found a video of myself by myself and watched it from like year 1 of stand up. And I had such anxiety being like, who would say this and think it's going to work?
But that's good though. Like it's good. Like that's the thing with stand up. It's like, it's not like, so like there's 2 elements where it's like don't record us, and like the main element like as you get deeper into stand up is like don't record me because like this is gonna be on a special and I don't want people to see this material yet. But when you're first starting, it's like don't record me because until I say that out loud, like I didn't realize I'm like, oh, that's racist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like I needed to try it. You know what I mean? And then you say it out loud and you're like, oh, okay. You're like, that's pretty bad. You have enough instinct. Yeah. But there's some stuff too that like you'll look back on like 5 years and you're like, holy. Yeah. Like I did that multiple times. Why did I think that was okay?
I tried it at the first bar and then I went, that was just a bad crowd.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. We have like, it's worth doing like once a year, going through like your old stuff and that, and because like times change too, and realizing you're like, oh yeah, like I can't say that anymore. And honestly, like, I mean, not as much anymore, but there is people that are gonna be like, look at this tweet from 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that you're like, I mean, it was funny at the time, but that could be misconstrued. You know?
No, all my tweets are puns. I'm safe.
That's good. Yeah. All of my tweets now are just about Full House in the past 5 years. I don't use Twitter, and my Twitter is literally me talking about nothing but Full House. That's it for the past 5 years.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I agree with the old book sentiment. Like that shelf there, minus the 4 books that are comedy related, the rest of them are also comedy related, but they're just old shitty jokes.
Okay, wicked.
Yeah, that I'll go through and be like, oh, there was something here. I was just too stupid to know what the thing was.
100%.
Yeah.
Like that is like one of the best pieces. Like I was like 2 years into comedy, and Mike Wilmot said that, where he was just like, yeah, like never throw away a joke. Even if it's the worst thing ever. Never.
Yeah.
Because he's like, you'll just take some time 5 years from then, 6 years. And honestly, like there's been some great jokes that like, or this happens a lot too.
Yeah.
Like there's like a joke on my album that's like one of my favorite jokes, and it's like I get a lot of compliments, but like I tried it like 3 or 4 times and it just didn't work, and it would be edgy. And then sometimes, more so than going back to your notebook, sometimes like one of your buddies or a comic's like, hey man, do you still do that joke? And you're like, what joke? And like, you know, the one where like this happens and this and that, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was really funny. And you're like, but I dropped it because it didn't work. And then you're like, hold on. Even the second they tell you like what was funny about it, you're like, oh, that's what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And then you try it again. You're like, thank God you told me that.
Yeah.
Because you're like, that 30-second joke that wasn't really working. You're like, that's 3 minutes now.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this awesome joke.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I felt that. Like I had an opener about my dad, and I used to do it when I started, and I stopped doing it because I didn't know how to deliver it properly. Like the way I was delivering it was making the audience sad.
Right.
And then like I had told Cedric the joke. Cedric Newman, and he was like, why don't you do that joke, that's really funny. And I was like, it just made people sad, and he told me to try it again, and I went up and did the joke, and it
you
killed.
have better instincts now.
Yeah, and it did great, and it was my opener on the album because of it. But
man.
I was gonna just throw the joke out.
That's the ultimate. Yeah, it's more so less than rechecking the notebook. It's other comics that always happens. It's like, because the thing is, if a joke does get developed and become this joke, then you're still doing it, so no one has to ask about it.
Exactly.
But when you're around someone a lot, and all of a sudden they're like, you know what just came back to me? Because sometimes that happens. It'll happen for me too. Like I'll be in a conversation, and then like something will happen. I'll be like, it's like blah blah blah's joke, and then you say it, and everyone's like, that's funny, because in the context of what we were talking about, that punchline lined up perfectly. Yeah. And then you message like, oh, we were just talking about that guitar joke that you have, and like, guitar joke, you remember with the guy and this and that, and like, oh yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, try that again. Because like, oh, dude, I haven't done that for a while. No, like that just, and it's always something like that. It was edgy. It made people sad. It isolated the audience.
Yeah, but those are the things that people connect with the most. I think. Because I think the whole fun of stand-up is you want to see somebody who's saying the things that you don't want to say. Well, that you do secretly want to say, but you don't want to say in public to other people. Yeah. Whether or not it's sad or edgy, or like you said, you know, but I think it's just like an outlet for people to see that kind of stuff, and it resonates a whole lot more with people when they can directly relate to something, as opposed to just being like, oh, that was a good joke about cars. Totally. You know?
And that's also too where like the magic comes from too, right? Where it's like every now and then you have a joke that's like so good that's like there's like this one line that like somebody can be like, man, this comedian had this joke, and it's like blah 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 blah. Yeah. Like, and they can say the joke, and people are like, that's really funny. But then sometimes like, man, he was talking about this and that, and like, just like, you need a clip to share or something. Like, you had to see how he did it. Because it's like, if I retell what you were saying, people are like, oh, that's sad. And you're like, it wasn't though. It wasn't. You should have seen, like, trust me, it wasn't. And you're like, aw.
That happened earlier today, actually. Jesse was trying to quote the bit he told you he thought was funny. And then
Let me preface this. I said, I can't do it as well as Paul because he's more physical in his comedy. I'm very stoic. As just sitting beside me, you've noticed this. I brought it up, and I was like, Paul had this great joke about this, and then Evan sits there for about 2-3 seconds, and he goes, Paul would have said it better.
Yeah.
Those are. It's always funny though because it's crazy. I never believed when I started doing comedy that it was 90% delivery, but it straight up is because sometimes I'll have a joke that isn't funny if I don't deliver it properly, and then you have the jokes that you can deliver in any way that work all the time because the writing is there. But it's such a huge part. You can sell a shitty joke with a good personality.
I think though too that it's like, I think a big part of comedy, like for me at least, and I think for a lot of people, is like there's like, this is like the craziest thing that's like always this Rubik's Cube that's hard to figure out, where it's like, okay, so it is about delivery, but there's like something about being like truthful. So in the sense where like, I might be able to deliver this joke, but it's like, that's a really like silly, happy, like I have to be powering through with like, let's say being positive, this, that. Okay. And then on the way to the show, 1,000,001 things happen. I get like bad news on a phone call, and then this bus delays, and now I'm walking, and then this guy tries to fight me. There's something very important about showing up to a show and realizing like, you can't do that joke tonight. Because even though I can pull it off with the delivery and stuff, that joke's not going to work. So then it's like, there's just certain things like when you're looking through your set list where you're like this joke's a little bit darker. This joke's a little bit that. And like, if you're hosting the show, it's like, that's a matter of like setting up the 15 minutes and now I'm back and I shook it off, you know? But sometimes like there's certain jokes too that are like, you kind of got to be in a good mood to do that. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
You know, and it's like being like truthful to like, but that doesn't mean like there should never be jokes where it's like I have to be in a bad mood to do that, because realistically it's like you're never going to be in a bad mood that much. And that was always one of my like, that was like a big problem I had when I started comedy, and now it's like a pet peeve of mine to watch. But like I remember watching guys like Dave Merhej and like stuff like that where like they would like get ranty. And they'd get like, you know, and then doing a joke because something made me angry, and then I'm going to try that in 3 days. And being like, I don't understand this, that. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves in comedy is like people ranting and being angry when you're like, you're not angry though. You know what I mean?
When you can feel it's not genuine and it's just like for the sake of being different, like they do it.
Fake rants, you know? So then it was like, and I was like, I have high energy. So like trying, also like trying to be high energy. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, if you're high energy, that high energy is going to come out naturally. Right? So like now I'm never like, like here we go, 20-minute set. Like I most times start my sets pretty slow because I know naturally as I'm trying to explain something to you, that's how I explain things. I'm naturally going to get this. And even when I tell this joke for the 200th time, that part really does like frustrate me.
Well,
you know?
a big part of the joke is the audience being able to tell you're excited to tell it.
Exactly.
You know, and like a lot of my stuff, particularly like when I'm sad, like I can't do any of my jokes with act outs because I'm not smiling right. Like it's a weird thing to explain, but my smile is just a little off because I'm kind of miserable, man. And everyone can tell. They know. I don't know how they know, but they know. It's crazy.
I need to jump in and ask something to Evan about earlier. He told me that he lost an arm wrestling match to a man in a wheelchair, and he started telling me the story, and I had to pause it until we were on the podcast because I wanted to hear the whole story.
So my girlfriend's stepdad, when we first started dating, so he's in a wheelchair, right? And I get to her house, and he challenges me to an arm wrestle. Right?
How soon when you got to the house?
Like 5 minutes. Like it was, hi, how are you? Let's see what you got, you know?
Was that your first time meeting him?
Yeah. So he's in a wheelchair, right? So his upper body is jacked.
I'd say.
He's a massive guy. He's wheeling around all the time. So we start arm wrestling, and he does that thing where like he pretends to like, it's even, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, look, I'm holding my own. And then he just went like that. And he fucking mucked my arm into the table. And I felt so shitty. And then for like the next 2 years, he was just making comments about how weak I was. And like behind his back to Steph, I'd always be like, I'm going to challenge this man to a race one day. Like, see what happens next, you know?
We'll see.
We'll see who's the better man.
Let's do a decathlon.
Let's race to the fucking stop sign and back.
You should have just put an arm wrestling table at the bottom of the stairs.
You just set it up. Honestly, there's a few things like this, and I blame the internet. 110% and too much internet. But like for the rest of my life, I will refuse to ever arm wrestle again.
Why?
Like I'll never arm wrestle. And it's because, and honestly, I know these things, like, okay, so also to like get a little sidetracked, like I was just in Wonderland.
Yeah.
And I haven't been to Wonderland in 10 years.
Yeah.
And like my fucking fear was so high, but it's because in the last 10 years, the internet and random clips, like I've seen so many random clips of people falling off roller coasters, of this, of that, like that adds to it. So the arm wrestling thing, like you have to have seen this. The arm wrestling clips when they're like holding it like this and then all of a sudden one just goes crack and they just break it.
Oh, God.
So I'm like, how do I not know?
Yeah.
How do I not know how strong I am? You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I don't think I'm going to break their arm, but I know I'm not going to give up.
Yeah.
You know? And somebody pushing hard enough, if I just break my arm, like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So I'm always like, no. No. And it's literally just because of like things you see on the internet. There's so many things that I'm like, that's not scary. And then on the internet, I'm like, no, you could choke.
Yeah.
I've seen viral videos. You're not supposed to eat a banana like that. You know? It's just rearranged my whole life. It's like, I'm not going to arm wrestle. I'm not going to do it. A kid, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I still got to get my record up. But when someone's actually big, I'm like, you win. You're going to break my arm? No way.
I'm the opposite of. I was drinking. I challenged another comic, Daniel Shaw, who's like 6'6", probably got like
I know
60 pounds on me.
Yeah.
And it was St. Patrick's Day. We were getting free drinks, so I was like, let's try and help out this brewery that's just been feeding us drinks all night.
Yeah.
Winner gets a T-shirt purchased by the loser. And he just dummied me so quick and did the same thing where he let me win a little bit and then just like immediately fucking folded me over.
Yeah.
I do want to say that is the biggest piece of shit move ever. You know what I mean?
Is.
Like you could already just assert your dominance by just winning, but to like give the other person a little bit of hope and just be like, oh no. Oh.
It's like a
dumb.
noogie. Yeah.
I got Dan back, though. I moved his car. We were at Joker's Comedy Club in Richmond Hill. It was the day Rogers went down. So he was on stage. He's one of those guys that takes like phone out, keys out, wallet out. So I passed his keys off to Jeff Faulkner, who moved his car from one end of the parking lot to the other end. So Dan walks out and he's like, my car was right here. Where's my car? And we're trying not to laugh. We're like, ask the pizza place if they saw a car get towed because his phone didn't work. And then he's like, we didn't see anything. It must have been stolen. And they're like, we're really sorry. Our phone doesn't work. We'd help you. I'm like, Dan, you can drop me off and just like keep my car for the night. I know like you have no way of talking to your wife right now. And then we're like, it's over there. And he was just like, you assholes.
Man,
like,
it's so good.
Yeah.
A good prank is the fucking best, man.
And he was he was delighted that we were mean to him. Like, he's one of those guys. Like, he didn't come up swinging. He wasn't, like, mad at us.
Man.
He was just like, that's good.
Once you know the prank's just a prank, it's like, there is a buffer zone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, one of my things that I'm the worst with is, like, if you... And it's insane how sensitive I am to it. But like, if you're like, you know, like the classic standing around the corner and I come in here and you go, bah, and I didn't know you're there. Like that, I am so jumpy. Like I'll legit scream and stuff. Yeah. And it's just like, there's a buffer zone because like in that 2 seconds, I'm like for real angry, but in about 2 seconds you adjust back to like it's comedy, it's prank, no one got hurt, it's funny, but there is 2 seconds where you're like, why would you like,
yeah.
And then you gotta be like, don't do that.
Man,
you know?
my grandpa almost swung at me when I did that, and because he's just old and like came from the era of if anyone did anything wrong to you, he'd swing. You know? So,
yeah, man.
And he's like 5'7", but one of those guys that's just like built big. So like he was throwing from his hips, and then he was just like, "Don't fucking do that."
Yeah.
He actually told me something recently that really warmed my heart. My grandmother passed, and he was waiting for her to die to want to buy a motorcycle.
Oh, that's cute. Because
Yeah.
the motorcycle's dangerous.
Yeah.
So then it's like whatever.
Yeah, so it's
That's
like
true, like live on the wild side.
Yeah, he's like, I got a momotorcycle because now I have no mom to be sad when I die.
Yeah, that is cute.
he
That
just
is
wants to
really
cute.
be closer to my grandmother.
Yeah, because now you're like, yeah, just ride, no helmet.
Yeah.
Just ripping it.
Just riding down the highway like, see you soon, mom.
Yeah. No speed limits, no nothing. That's cute. I
Just
like
wind
that.
on his bald head.
Yeah, Highway to Hell blaring from his fucking Jable speaker in the back of his car.
Always. That's the first song that I pictured in my head.
He's a sweet man. He wouldn't play that.
It's just, yeah, just like classical music, but still no helmet. 4 Seasons, but he's still like 140 on the highway. You're like, all right. There's some contrast there.
Evan, how are we doing for time? Should we take a pause and come back?
Oh, because you have to reset the cameras and stuff,
I gotta
right?
reset the cameras.
Yeah. Okay.
However, I was gonna say we're about ready to reset, so I think it's time for the surprise.
Let's do it.
I
Yeah.
thought the surprise might have been,
Oh, tell us what you think it is, and then Evan will show you.
well, I didn't know. Okay, I'll tell you what I think it is. And, it's probably a stupid guess. You guys are better than this. Okay, so I thought when you said there's another guy named Paul Thompson or whatever, I thought that would be... I thought that was...
You thought he was gonna come in?
No, I didn't think he was gonna come in.
Oh, that would have been so
I thought that was, imagine that, dude. Then I would arm wrestle 100%. Break my arm and you can have my Instagram. No, I thought that like you were like, I don't know. Randomly when you were saying that, I'm like, oh, that's the surprise. That's the surprise.
This is gonna feel so underwhelming now.
No, yeah, I won't even guess.
That feels like some Chris Hansen shit. Like, have a seat. We've got another Paul
That would
Thompson.
be amazing. So we'll reset and then we'll do the surprise.
Yes.
Sick. We'll be right back. Man, I watched that show Prank Panel.
Yeah?
That was like, cause like with Eric, have you heard of that show with like Eric Andre?
No, it's interesting.
It's like, so it's a good show with like Eric Andre and stuff like that. But is that the surprise?
Yeah.
Freezies.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What color you like?
Blue. I'll take blue. Sick.
Blue.
But yeah, it's in front of a live audience, and like that
Yeah.
stuff happens less. So there's like a laugh track. And it's like, man, the more you watch that stuff, sometimes you're like, man, it really takes away.
Yeah.
It's like they had some good pranks and stuff like that, but like as you watch it, you're like, it really takes away when there's a laugh track and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And just like stuff too, where like they'll pause at a good part, and then like we'll be right back.
Dude, it
Yeah.
blows my mind that America's Funniest Videos still exists when it's like that stuff that you're seeing on the internet like 6 months earlier.
That's the internet.
Yeah.
Literally.
Before
I didn't know
they
it still
package
existed.
it. Yeah.
With that same host?
No.
No, they got Carlton.
Yeah.
Did they? Yeah.
Are we back from the break?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're rolling.
We're just enjoying these sweet, sweet freezies.
Yeah, I caught all of it. We're good.
We just
switch.
thought-
I can't believe this is a surprise. You want to hear my guess? When you're like, it's going to be underwhelming. I'm like, I'm sure it won't be. And then you're like,
You're not crazy. You thought we got a whole.
do you want to know what I thought? After it was like, okay, if that wasn't the surprise, I thought the surprise was that you guys did some like Nardwar shit.
Yeah.
And you were going to be
Oh.
like, look at this video from 10 years ago. Tell me about it. And I was going to be like, wow, I haven't seen that in 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
and it was going to be a surprise. I forgot about that. That's what I also thought the surprise was going to
It
be.
was
And
gonna
then
be-
you came out with 3 freezes. Nardwar. Gotcha. How did you know? How did you know on a hot summer day? Hold up. How did you know? Who are you working for? On a hot summer day that a freezy would go down so nice.
Oh, man.
Oh, it is good though. I think it adds a little flair. You know, a little spice to the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Talk show.
Yeah, talk
Talk
show.
show?
We're calling it a talk show,
Yeah.
not a podcast.
I love
Yep.
that.
to make
Yeah.
it dignified.
Yeah, I love that.
We also just thought it would be so funny for someone to be scrolling down, just seeing grown men enjoying freezies behind microphones.
And we are. We're having
Too
a blast.
much.
That's awesome.
I hope I heard about you take the next question.
No one that needs subtitles. That's the other thing about the freezes. You're like, what did you just say? Yeah, be like, all right, it's on to the next thing. As you're sucking sugar juice.
Yeah, for the thumbnail, we all need to look at the cameras and do the tongues.
Oh,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so my next question is, I read on one of the websites that pop up when you search your name, because, like we said, it's all you now.
Yeah.
Which, congratulations.
Thank you.
Fuck the other Paul Thompson. Get out of here.
work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that you went to the UK for a little bit.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
What was that like?
That was good, man. I went for like 6 months, and like it was good, but it's like it's very expensive.
Yep.
Like way more expensive, and it's dangerous.
Really?
Like, yeah, like, because if you're gonna like go there as like a comic and you're gonna live like, you're gonna have to live outside London, and it's like, man, like it's dangerous in the sense like, if you see 3 12-year-old kids like looking hood, like switch to the other side of the road.
Yeah.
Because like they're 12, they don't care. They'll literally be like, do you have a cigarette?
Yeah.
And they'll stab you.
Yeah.
And like the amount of times that I saw young kids just ripping women's purses off, stuff that you never see here, right?
Wow.
There's that. Comedy wise though too, like it was like, it took me, I didn't really like get into the scene. Like they book way far ahead, so I messed up. I was just like, I'm going to England, I'm starting tomorrow. And then people are like, as you start doing good, people are like, do you want to do my show in 6 months?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, and your visa's expired by then?
No, the visa was for like 3 years, but it was just like after 6 months, it was like I lived with a girl at the time, and she was like, this is depressing. You know what I mean? And she was like, would you want to go back to Toronto? And then at that point, that was my first time living with a girl too. So I was like, I was happy to be like living with her, and like our relationship was going really well. And then what we were paying in England as I like started, I was like, maybe let me keep trying. And I remember I went on to like a Toronto website, and where real estate was, this is like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
What we were paying, and I started looking at what we could get in Toronto and just being like, man, I could be back where I was before in like a sick place with us splitting. And it was just like, let's go. And honestly, I was like, if you want to go, let's go. And it was like for the better, but I still did random shows, but like, man, my biggest bombs of my life are in England. Like 110%, man. 110%.
Did you do a gong show there?
No, like not gong shows. Okay, so like here's like one big bomb. But like I was doing shows, and then one of my best friend growing up, his older brother was visiting in England. And growing up, they were always like, he was like the older brother that was always like, you're going to do stand-up one day, yo. You're so funny. They're always like, you know, like they would have been like 24 when I was like 14. So like when their older friends came over that I wanted to impress, like that's always, they'd always be like, this kid's so funny. And then I just remember being like, I would just show off to them, and like their older friends would be like, man, this kid's wild. Like he's so funny, you know? So he was like, I'm in England, like I want to come to one of your stand-up shows. So like in the back of my mind, like I still have that where I'm like, he was like an older brother to me. Like I'm like, I got to impress this guy, right?
Yeah.
So the only show I could do was like in the basement of this pub. And I went, and there was like 40 people there, and they were like, you can go up last, but because you're going last, you can do like a little bit more time. And I was like, okay, sick. So that's a good look too, because I'm trying to show off. So it's like kind of looks like I'm the headliner, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever, right? And I remember that show, like distinctly remember certain comics on that show that was like, they've done it 4 times, 5 times, and just like bombing. But then certain things would like light up, and they were just bombing. And like also it was like a rough pub. Like there was a lot of like just like British, like came downstairs to the basement with a big pint, you know what I mean? Like, what do you got then? Yeah. You know what I mean? Came here for a laugh, you know? Like just like it was really like that. And I was like, man, I'm going to do some of my dirtiest. Like I just really calculated in the room, like, okay, I'll do this joke. And then I'd hear a response to something. No, don't do that joke. Don't do this. Yeah. Planned out the perfect 10 minutes, and people weren't doing well. And I remember going up, and I destroyed. Like I did so well. And I was like, sick, you know? And I remember coming up after and people just coming up to me being like, that was brilliant. And the things that they say are so much better than like, you're funny. They're like, that's nothing short of genius.
Yeah.
Brilliant, you know? And people saying that. And I remember my friend's older brother like standing next to me and he's like, he's always been that funny since he was a kid. Like it was such a good moment for me. You know what I mean? And people are like, you've known him? And he's like, he's always been like that. So the people who booked the show were like just blown away. They're like, honestly, like this is a rough show. And like no one's came in and just like blown the top off. So I'm like, yeah, I'm getting my footing in England, right?
Yeah.
And then they were like, we have a theater show in 2 weeks. They're like, honestly, usually it books far ahead, but they're like, you're like, we got to get you on that one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, please, you know what I mean? And they're like 150 pounds. I was like, sick. Like that's the most I've been paid since I was there.
Yeah.
Right? It's a little bit outside England. Yeah. So I tell my girlfriend, like, I'm booked on this theater show. She's like, sick. When is it? I'm taking work off. Cool. We're like, cool. So we got to go on the tube. And then if you're going even outside of London, it's like the above ground. So we took the tube, then hopped onto the above ground, probably an hour and a half to get outside of London, right? And we go to this theater, okay? And then I'm with her. And also, too, she was like, I want to come to the show. And I'm like, come. Because, again, just like everything else and anything in the arts, it's like there's a piece of you that's fueled by, like, I want to show off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm like, yes, come. You know? And I remember showing up and we go backstage and, like, do you want drinks and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh. And they're, like, literally, like, I remember when I brought her backstage being like, I hope they don't care. The producers were like, I just want to let you know your boyfriend is the funniest guy, blah, blah, blah. Like, and it was like so sick. Like, do you want a drink? Like, whatever you want. They're treating her like this, blah, blah, blah. There's food, there's drinks. And then she's like, well, I want to watch the show. And they're like, oh, well, all the tickets, you know what I mean? But then she's like, I want to watch the show. And they're like, well, you could sit, like, there's stuff in the front row. And she's like, yeah, like, cool, let's do that, right?
Oh, God.
Yeah, so she goes to the front row to watch, and then there's 3 comics before me, because they have a bunch of intermissions. So there's 3 comics before me, and then there's going to be an intermission, and then there's going to be another couple comics, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're getting the closer before the intermission spot, too. So that's like a power spot.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, man, I'm fresh off, and everyone's gassing me up. It's awesome. So 2 of the comics that go up before me were comics that were at that show before, and were bombing.
Yeah.
And literally one of them told me, she's like, this is my 4th set. And there was another guy who told me he's done 20 sets. Oh, and they were like asking me questions like, how do you do it? How do you this, that? Because they did so bad, right?
Yeah.
They go on at that show. I remember the girl who told me she did 4 sets. She's murdering. Okay? And then the guy who told me that he'd only done 20 sets and he was awful, he's killing. So now I'm backstage and I'm like, good thing there's an intermission. Yeah. Because like they bombed before and I killed, and now they're killing. So like I'm gonna get am I gonna get a standing? Oh, like what's gonna happen here? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Dude, I go on stage with a lot of confidence. That's another tightrope that you have to walk and stand up.
Yeah.
Never get too into your head like I'm going to bomb. Yeah. Never get too into your head like I'm going to kill. Yeah. You just always got to be like, we'll see. Yeah. Even if it's all set up for you where everyone's like, yo, you're going to destroy. You're like, we'll see. Yeah. Even if people are just like, man, they're a tough crowd. You're like, we'll see. You always just got to stay with. But at that time, I'm like, fully in my head, like I'm about to rock this fucking theater. There's 450 people there. Okay. Like it's packed theater. I go on and like, I don't know what it is. I don't know. But like my first joke, just dead silent. Do you know what I mean? Like nothing. Yeah. And then I remember like Gilson Lubin always telling me where he's like, who cares? He's like, if your first joke doesn't go well, he's like, double down. And he's like, when you double down on that second one and show that like, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to do. He's like, they always are like, oh, okay. It shows something. So I'm like, no problem. I wasn't even sweating. I'm like, double down. I double down. But then it starts getting to like, not heckling, but worse than heckling, where you can like hear people in the crowd like, what is this? What is going on? What is he talking about? This and like just starting to look at people and being like, like this, that, like it's like almost like I'm not even speaking English. Yeah. And then I'm like doing my like second joke, and then that's bombing. And then as I start getting to the third joke, like then they start like stuff like, not again, like and stuff like just groans and stuff, and I'm like dying, right?
I feel it secondhand.
Like brutal. And then like I have like another like 8 minutes, right? And I'm going, and I just keep dying. And it gets to the point too where it's like you start sweating, and it feels like I'm clawing. It gets to the point where I'm like literally like saying stuff where I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is this not saying things that like I would never say, but being like that? I swear that was funny last night. Like, and then as it comes out, being like, I would never say that.
Yeah.
But then you're that panicked that you're like, I swear that's funny. And then you're like, then you're starting to hear yourself. You start going outside of your body, just like looking at yourself, just bombing.
Yeah.
Like bombing, right? And then I'm like, I wrap up and I get off, and they like clap so much. Like when I'm like, okay, well, thank you very much. Like I stay polite. Like you hear like unanimously, everyone's like, finally. Do you know what I mean? And then I get off, and then I'm like, okay. Like I'm like trying to look at my girlfriend to be like, let's go right away. The guy gets on stage and he goes, so usually we have an intermission, but I'm not going to leave you guys on that. Should we do a couple more just as a palate cleanser or something like that? Everyone's like, yeah.
No.
God.
Yeah. So then they bring up 2 more comics, and every comic that's coming on, the first thing they're doing, they're like, so which one's the girlfriend of the is that you?
Oh no.
You're the girlfriend. They're like, how do you have to sleep next to him tonight? They're like, yeah, get a hotel. You don't want to be around that energy. Like this, everyone's just like ripping in. And so she's sitting there so embarrassed. Finally, they go to the intermission. And then I'm like, well, I still got to get paid because it's like brutal, right?
Yeah.
And I come into the back, right? And as I'm like about to ask that, they make an announcement, but the guy has his back towards me, so he knows that I'm not back there. He goes, just to let you guys know, he's like, we're going to figure out stuff with the theater. And he's like, we're going to e-transfer everybody, and you'll be paid by the end of the week. Everyone's like, that's cool. And he looks at me, and I go, that's cool. He goes, no, not you. He goes, I'll pay you cash right now to leave. Like, he was like, I'll pay you cash. He had it ready. Wow. And this was the guy who booked me, who prior to this was like, this guy's brilliant. And to see how that switched, where it was like, I don't know what you did that night, but like, he's looking at me like, you tricked me.
Yeah.
Like, you tricked me. You know what I mean? He gives me the money, and we go to leave. Now, this is something, too, that, like, I've matured since, and I've learned a lot. But you got to keep in mind, this is now, like, another hour-and-a-half ride back with my girlfriend. I now know that, like, if you're in a relationship and, like, they come to a show, or if you come home from, like, you had a bad set or something went bad and stuff like that, be professional with your partner.
Yeah.
They don't need that. But at the time, I remember she was, like, saying stuff to me, and I'm just not. Nothing. Probably is like a 10-minute walk to like get to the train. Then I remember sitting on the train. So I've ignored her for 15 minutes. And I remember she was like, honestly, she was like, I don't know what happened, but she was just like, and she was my biggest fan. She loved my stand-up. She was like, I thought it was funny. And I was like, you thought it was funny? Like, you thought it was funny? Do you think that fucking helps? Do you think that? And now instantly it was like, don't talk to me like that. And you're like, well, don't lie to me. It's like, I'm not lying to you. I thought, and it was just like, whatever, you know? And now it's like, now on top of the bomb, now you're sitting there for an hour, and she's sitting there being like, don't be rude to me, and this, that. And then you have to go home. And it's like, dude, that was like a 2-day bomb. Because then, like, when I got home, it was like, let's go to sleep. And it was like, let's go to sleep. No. And then in England, the fucking convenience stores sell liquor at all time. So I was like, I'm going for a walk. You know what I mean? And then I go out for a walk, and like, that's dangerous at like 2 a.m. with random people walking around. But in my mind, I'm like, kill me, I don't give a fuck. And it's almost like people can tell. Like, sketchy people would walk by me and just be like, what's up, man? You know what I mean? Because like, they can just tell. They're like, something's happened to this guy's soul. And I remember getting a big bottle of like liquor, not even beer, and then just sitting in some fucking old English like park of like this church and like drinking, and then getting messages like, I'm worried about you, and being like, I'm worried about me too. You know what I mean? Like, it was like so dark. Like, it was like something that like probably took like a week for us to recover.
How many poems did you write about that?
Oh man. Well, I was done on the poems after that, but I probably should have hit the book. You know what I mean? That was after my poetry phase. But like, yeah, man, like that was like, so then sometimes you'll do shows and people are just like, the crowd sucks. No one does well. Someone will go up for 10 minutes and they get off and they're like, fuck, that was a bomb. And you're like, that's not a bomb. Yeah. That's a bad crowd, man. Yeah. That's a bomb is when everyone's murdering.
Yeah.
And like, you bomb. Like, that's like, wow. You feel that in your soul.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When you bomb, if you're first on the show especially, your biggest hope for the rest of the night is that everyone else on the show eats just as much shit as you did. You know? Because there's no way I'm going to live with myself if I did the worst set in the world and then some guy, like you said, who's done 20 sets goes up, murders, blows the roof off the place. I'm like, oh man, I put 5 years in for that.
Yeah, man. And it's like none of that stuff matters. Like, it's like, that's why you can't get into your head. 'Cause it's like, yeah, some people just have their nights, and it's like you always have to be prepared, like you're brand new. You know, if you come in, you're like, oh, it's all these comics have been doing a year, and the show's going well, and you're like, I've been doing it for 15 years. Like, I'm gonna you got to literally be like, no, man. You still got to be stressed and be like, maybe don't do that joke, maybe do this joke, maybe like you can't just be like, all right, so anything I say is gonna work, because it's like, no, man, you could bomb. People don't like that confidence. They like it in a good way, but.
Man, it's so funny you say that, because you're someone I watch on stage and I'm like, that dude's free. Like, so to think that there's much of a calculated risk to it all is awesome. It's
the biggest gift and curse, but it's like, I get the worst anxiety. And it goes up and downs, but there's some times, man, where I'm like, it's never been this bad. Like a few times a month, I say to myself, and now I have to remind myself, I'm like, you say this all the time, but I'll be like, no, this is bad. Like, this is like... my heart, like this is like medically bad. Yeah. Like I'm like, I don't know what's happening. This is beyond stand up. Like I'm freaking out. Yeah. You know, but you just always, and then like afterwards you're like, man, I was really nervous, and people are like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? You got nothing but confidence up there, and you're like, I'm happy it seems that way, but it's like, I'm not saying that to like get attention or anything like that. It's like, no, truthfully, like I was tripping balls, man.
Yeah. Well,
most times.
No one sees the mini heart attack before you walk up, you know? Yeah. That's always something you hold into yourself. And like when you get up there, you can't even reveal it to people. You know what I mean? You can't even go up there and be like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I'm just really nervous today. You have to fully change your personality 100%. From the nervous person you were a second ago to a different person. And the nervous person is still there. They're just watching from the outside, like you were saying, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, because it's not in your character, you know? But if there's specific things that are making you nervous, like I like to talk about that, and that can help. That's like good for like crowd work. You know what I mean? Where it's just like specifically, I'm like, this table is tripping me out, you know? Yeah. And it's like, I'll give you the respect that you want. Like, it's like, I'm scared of you. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're making me nervous.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? But still, once you're on stage and you're under the light and you have the mic, it's like, even when you say you're making me nervous, it comes out in a funny way. Yeah. And that's what comedy is. It's like, I'm dead serious. This is making me nervous, but it somehow just comes out confident. And then that's sometimes the perfect formula for the funniest shit. Yeah. I mean, people are like, I know he's serious, but you're not like, oh, that's making me nervous. It's like, it didn't affect your delivery. Yeah. You know? So it's like, damn, like, I know you're telling the honest truth. I know that guy does scare you, but you're still like delivering it.
More of like an eccentric, loud kind of nervous, as opposed to like a in yourself quiet. Yeah. Yeah.
Like you just like rant nervous. Yeah. The extroverted nervousness.
Yeah. Like talking too much ADHD style. You know what I mean? As opposed to the... I feel like my anxiety is very much the opposite. When I get nervous, I don't talk more. I talk less, which is, it makes people uncomfortable. You know? They're like, why is this guy staring at it?
Yeah. I would agree too. However, if you're around a close friend, like let's say you're at some event and you're like tripping out and you're nervous for an hour, when you get like, it's just your buddy and it's just you and him, and he pulls you aside and he's like, are you okay? I feel like I can like kind of rant to that and be like, this is what's making me nervous and this is what's making me nervous. And in a sense, it's like, that's what you got to do with the audience. You know what I mean? Yeah. The audience always kind of has to be like your best friend. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, and saying it like you already like me is a big thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to win your respect. It's like, it's almost like you already know who I am, and you're like, yeah, I'm fucking nervous. Yeah. You know, and just straight up saying it, but not like, I'm not saying that because I'm trying to win you over or nothing. Just saying it to them like you would say it to your friend, and your friend's like, oh, damn.
Well, to other people that comes off as confident, because no one in real day-to-day life, if something makes someone uncomfortable, most of the time they don't say anything.
Ignore.
They just ignore it, right? Whereas as a comic, to outwardly point it out right away, especially if other people are feeling it, everyone's relieved. They're like, oh, thank God someone said it.
Yeah, and it's something that everybody goes through, right? So it's like, if you can vocalize that, people are like, yeah, they relate to it. Yeah. You know? Like, yeah. Always. That's why super confident stuff, like, it's like, no one's ever been able to pull off a joke about, like, I have a big dick. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like shit like that. And it's so funny, too, because, like, every now and then it's something you'll see somebody a year into comedy or something, but it's like maybe once a year I'll see a new comic and they'll be like, honestly, like, and even sometimes they go about it in a way where like I can see how you thought, but like they'll just be like, man, like I have like, you know, my penis is like a little bit larger than usual, so like when I'm with, instantly people are like, fuck you. Fuck you, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's never gonna work.
Yeah, first you want us to help you chase your dreams. Second, you're gonna lie to us like that. That's
gotta be real, dude.
Yeah.
Someone else having a big dick can be hilarious. Saying that, but claiming it as your own.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, talking about someone else's, but yeah, being like, I have a pretty big dick. Like, it's like, come on, man. Like, no.
Well, because it's immediately compensating. You know what I mean? Like, if I were to come out and be like, hey, everybody, I'm kind of hilarious. That's why I'm up here tonight. Everyone would be like, oh, really? Let's see then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? No one's going to be, like, on board that. Like you said, you can't be
100%.
too confident. And when you come out to be like, listen, guys, I've got a pretty nice hog. Like, everybody's like, all right, what else is he lying about now? Yeah. You know?
That's almost even worse. Like, imagine doing a joke. I'm not saying it's huge, but, like, it's nice.
Now I want to make...
Or it's like, get the fuck out of here.
Now it feels like a challenge to make a joke about that work.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually tags. I have, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, on my album, I'm like, there is like a tag where like I'll be like, you know, like obviously guys like me though. But at that point in that set, it's like I've already beaten myself down enough, and I think you already know me, that it's like you know I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know I'm like joking. Or am I?
Yeah. I wrote one big dick one-liner, and saying it's a big dick one-liner gets rid of all the misdirection. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
It's I recently lost 70 pounds. Transitioned, chopped my wiener off. You know?
That's
pretty huge. I don't know, but it just, I never have told it on stage because I know people hate you.
Yeah.
They hate you
like,
immediately, even if it's a funny joke, which that probably isn't. You know?
Do you think that a girl could pull off a joke? I feel like it's basically the same rules. Like, a girl could pull off a joke about how nice her pussy is. No, not probably the same rules, eh?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I
I
feel like it'd be slightly more palatable because it doesn't have the creep factor that it has when a guy does it.
Yeah, that's true. You're right. Yeah.
But I don't know if people would be on board with it still.
Yeah, but you know what? As I'm trying to think about that, I'm like, the only way you still would have to self-deprecate at one point. Like, the only way I can see that joke working is like, I have this abnormally beautiful pussy. Anytime I'm with a guy, I have a beautiful pussy, but it sucks because I have an awful personality. Like, you would have to make fun. The contrast would have to be making fun of yourself.
Yeah, it just, or like something like, it looks so good, but it smells so bad. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be the contradicting piece of,
but like with the big dick, that doubles down on worse. If you're like, I have this big dick and everybody tells me I have this big dick and it's so nice, you know what I mean? But it's like, but my personality sucks. People are like, yeah, I know. You just talked about your big dick. Obviously, we know your personality sucks. You know? But a girl, I think, could talk about having a beautiful pussy, but like, but I'm crazy. That's funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also pretty real. Let's get into that.
Dude, I just had my freezy go down the wrong way. And
you
two are such pros that you kept going. And I just,
in the episode, I'm just going to say, I'm going to put a slow zoom on Jesse's face right after this, where it's just him choking for 30 seconds.
I can see that joke working is like, I have this abnormally beautiful pussy. Anytime I'm with a guy, I have a beautiful pussy, but it sucks because I have an awful personality. Like, you would have to make fun. The contrast would have to be making fun of yourself.
Yeah, it just, or like something like, it looks so good, but it smells so bad. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be the contradicting piece of,
but like with the big dick, that doubles down on worse. If you're like, I have this big dick and everybody tells me I have this big dick and it's so nice, you know what I mean? But it's like, but my personality sucks. People are like, yeah, I know. You just talked about your big dick. Obviously, we know your personality sucks. You know? But a girl, I think, could talk about having a beautiful pussy, but like, but I'm crazy. That's funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And also pretty real. Let's get into that.
Dude, I just had my freezy go down the wrong way.
Okay.
And then just the background.
Yeah, of us just talking.
I'm going through an existential crisis behind conversation.
You're like, I'm about to meet Nana, and I don't.
Nothing better to choke on, though. Because it will melt.
It will melt, yeah.
It's eventually like, what do you need? You're like, do you need water? You're like, it will be that soon.
Yeah.
It's becoming that.
Dude, what a terrible way that would be to go, though.
To choke on ice?
Yeah.
Imagine?
Yeah, you just didn't last long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could,
my
right?
God.
Yeah, like a solid piece of ice you could probably choke on. It really plugs it up.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just couldn't hold on.
It doesn't melt
enough.
fast enough.
And then there'd be no, like, autopsy report. They wouldn't know.
Yeah. There was nothing lodged in his throat. I don't know how
he choked. I don't think he did, though. Maybe he choked on his spit. That won't kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
He just died.
It's like there's no stress marks from, like, hand forcing it. Yeah.
That's a good way to kill yourself.
Yeah.
It's to force yourself to choke on ice. And then people are like,
Yeah.
did he kill himself? What happened?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he just disappeared.
If there are any
How?
kids listening, that's the best way.
Sue Evan. I have nothing to do with this. Oh, dude, just circling back to your story about having like 90-minute trip home after a bomb.
Yeah.
There's no worse place to be in a fight with a significant other than on public transit.
Oh.
Dude,
Yeah,
like,
because anything, especially when you're a guy, anything they say makes everyone around think you're an asshole.
Oh,
and then
my.
anything you say makes everyone around think you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You can't be
No,
angry.
you have to just be quiet
Yeah.
and ignoring and keeping that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know what's so crazy about those is you kind of know that's the rule, but
Yeah.
then there's 60 minutes to bank up. So then this always happens, or like you get off and like
Yeah.
this, that. Also, it's like weird where like sometimes there's like formalities, you know what I mean? So like you're like you have to like almost be an actor because now
Yeah.
you're getting off and you don't say anything for 2 minutes. And then someone's like, were you guys on that train? Or are you transferring over? And then you still have to like, you're not going to be like, no. So you have to be like, no, we're taking that one. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, thank you. And you'll even hear her be like, no problem. Have a good night. And they're like, yeah. And then you like look back at each other, like back to back to the real vibe.
Yeah.
But then it's like once you're on the street, you know, it's like whoever's like, we both got one in the barrel now.
Yeah.
So now it's
Yeah.
like, who's shooting? And sometimes too, you'll walk 5
Yeah.
minutes and you're like, oh, interesting. You're like, I can play this. I can play this.
Yeah,
But
you're
then
looking around.
Eventually someone's just like, you know, the part that bothered me the most, you know what I mean? And you're like, okay, here we go now.
Yeah.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like guns. Now we go. We're firing bullets. You know what I mean?
You've made sure all the blinds
I
on the
just thought it
street
was
are closed.
funny that, you know, or like, I never thought for the record, you know what I mean, that.
Yeah.
But, you know, because of the way that and you're like, I never done.
Yeah.
And here we go. Here we go.
my girl and I got in a fight on public transit. Same thing. I was just being quiet and I was just staring above the window. It said, if you hit the emergency button, it'll be $500. And I was just thinking, like, just get me out of this train. So I was just thinking, like, how long would I have to work to pay back that $500 fine? Because that wouldn't be as bad as sitting there being, like, in a bad place in a relationship that's mostly good.
Well,
Yeah.
and the officers will take you home after.
Yeah.
You know, so like you don't have to.
Yeah.
We can split up there instead of ride together.
But it's all female officers? Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what did you say then?
Yeah.
And they start gaslighting you? I know you thought it was an emergency. You're like, no!
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I just wanted to bring up working with Rogan. Was that at the Underground when he popped in?
Underground. Yeah.
Okay, so for people who aren't aware, that was a 420 friendly venue before it was legal. And it was a great spot. I always bomb there. But what was it like when Rogan just randomly pops in?
That was amazing, but it's like, truth be told, it's like, that's just a good thing to be able to say that it's like open for Joe Rogan and stuff like that. But it was like, he was like, yeah, I'll stop by.
Yeah.
and they were like, let's start the show at 8. And I think he got on stage at like midnight.
Yeah.
So like 70 comics got to open for Rogan.
That's great.
You know what I mean?
Love
but
it.
man, the game is the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I gotta be like, I opened for him. You know what I mean? And then like, people are like, and no one's ever like, where? They never ask.
No.
When I say that, they probably just assume I opened for him in a theater because everyone's next question is like, how is he? And you're like, he's nice. And like, I really did meet him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he was like the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Like he really is. Like he's like super solid and stuff like that. But it's
Yeah.
just like, man, this is a good credit.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's like he didn't hand pick me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, what did you want to plug?
Okay, so I have the album, but more so like I have a new special coming out that's gonna be completely free on YouTube. So that should be like in the next like month or so, and it's gonna be called Horny.
Yep.
And the album cover, I've been painting. So I when the pandemic started, I always painted, but when the pandemic started, it was like the best for me. Because I was like, okay, now we're locked inside. We can't go anywhere. My first 4 months of the pandemic, like I literally didn't talk to anybody. It's like so good.
Wow.
Like, I mean, I talked to a bunch of people on the phone and stuff like that, but I never saw anybody, nothing. And I would wake up and no exaggeration, I would paint 16 hours a day.
Wow.
I would take a break for an hour, watch The Office, eat, and then get back to just like painting. I painted like 16 hours a day and I like leveled up hard. And I did a bunch of like cool paintings. And then as I was painting that fast and being like that productive, 16 hours a day, I was like, man, I want to do something like wild, wild, you know? And again, it's like, we're not supposed to be within 6 feet of each other. You're not supposed to be touching this, that. Yeah. I thought about like this like whole like Roman architecture, and I wanted to work on like all of these things that like I'll never have time to like focus on that. So like really intense architecture and stuff based on like the School of Athens by Raphael. Like I like focused on that. And then in that painting, there's a bunch of philosophers, but I took out the philosophers and I made an orgy, but I have like animals and stuff like that. Fucking like it's fucking crazy. Like I can show it to you right now. Like, like it's so like, and I've spent like 3 years, and it's one of those ones where like, okay, this is like 4 feet big. You know what I mean?
Let's get closer.
It's in. I'll show it to you guys for your reaction. The album will be released, and then they can see. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'll just show it to you guys for reaction.
Evan, come back around for that sweet reaction shot.
But so I painted this, but it's in my room, and it's been in my room as I work, and it's like it's one that like people are always like, I have paintings up all over the house, and like people come over like, oh, you painted all this? I'm like, oh, that's sick. You know what I mean? But my roommates are always like, show them the painting. And like it was never even done. And then people always come, and like it's one when you see it in person, because you got to imagine this being 4 feet. People are like, holy. But then the more you start looking, you're like, holy, because it's very graphic.
Okay.
You know? And then all of a sudden, like it was like 2 months ago, I knew I was like, man, I kind of want to call my album Horny, because it's just like the funniest word to me. Horny. Yeah. And I have a very like, it's a very sexual, inappropriate album, like mature themes, right? And then all of a sudden I was like, why don't I just make that the cover?
Yeah.
Like it all came through. And then the other thing is too, like, that might get censored right away, but then it's like rock and roll, baby. You know what I mean? Then you're like, all right, you censored my album. You know what I mean? But like, so this is the cover right here.
Holy shit.
You painted that?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
That's amazing.
See, like, if you zoom in,
is the horse just watching? Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ. It's a full-on orgy.
Well, if you didn't want to listen to the album, you at least got to see the album cover.
Yeah.
We'll link his profile below so you guys can find it. But like,
so that'll be
awesome.
There. Yeah, and I'll post all that, and like,
we'll obviously share. Thank you for joining the podcast
Thank you
today.
Guys.
Yes.
I think we'll end it on the blurred out album cover.
100%. Thank you guys.
Thank you for coming
for coming out.
Thank you.